Have you ever tried to start like a new healthy habit?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Like maybe you decide you're going to get into mindfulness or you sign up for this local yoga studio.
And immediately regret it.
Literally immediately, because almost right away you feel this, it is. We're looking at the work of Osman, and he is widely known as the Blind Muslim Yogi.
And his background, I mean, it's absolutely vital for understanding the sheer scale of the claims he makes in this material.
Oh, 100%. Because he's not just like a casual teacher. He has been practicing healing, yoga, and meditation at an incredibly advanced level for 50 years.
Half a century.
Yeah. And he actually attained his first experience of samadhi, which is this profound state of meditative consciousness by the time he was only 19.
Which is just staggering when you think about it.
It really is. And, we should mention a poignant detail about his content right up front. Osman has been permanently blind since May 2023.
Right.
But if you listen to his videos or his audio, you'll notice he frequently describes things using very vivid visual language.
Like describing colors or light or physical spaces.
Exactly. And that's because he had normal eyesight for decades prior to 2023. So that visual framework is still, like, deeply embedded in how he conceptualizes energy and how he teaches.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And his clinical background is just as fascinating, honestly.
Oh, definitely. Fill us in on that.
So he is a master-level bioenergy healer. And his specialization actually lies in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses.
It's just heavy stuff.
Very heavy. He utilizes what he describes as telepathic healing capabilities, and he bases this on quantum and entanglement principles.
Right.
But he's very clear that his approach is a scientific methodology, is drawn from ancient yoga and meditation sciences. He actually prefers the term scientific to describe his work.
And he has a really high success rate, doesn't he?
He does. He estimates his success rate in these critical care scenarios at around 90%.
Wow, 90%.
Yeah. But he's quick to point out that it isn't magic. It's a highly scientific process. He says it's simply the result of manipulating and transferring energy to those in need.
Well, they also follow his protocols, right?
Exactly. His patients follow natural spirituality and yoga protocols to replenish their lost energy. Because his underlying philosophy is that cancer and severe ailments are largely the result of our modern lifestyles.
Because modern life just violently depletes our natural energy.
That's the idea, yeah. Reversing those ailments requires practice and time and a really rigorous restoration of that lost energy.
And we really need to emphasize this part just as a disclaimer for you listening. Osman is explicitly clear that these natural-based therapies are complementary.
Yes, very important point.
They are designed to enhance medical care. They are never, ever meant to replace licensed medical treatment.
Right. He works alongside modern medicine, not against it.
Exactly. And for anyone listening who wants to explore his methods directly, he is actually incredibly accessible. He offers a free 5-minute yoga and meditation program that you can download right from his website.
Which is yogawellness786.com, right?
Yes, yogawellness786.com. And just a quick note for anyone who might have followed him a while ago, please don't go looking for the $5 anxiety fix. That's no longer available.
Good to know. But there's still a ton of free stuff.
Oh, absolutely. He hosts a wealth of free techniques on his YouTube channel, and you can find his show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify just by searching for The Blind Muslim Yogi.
Yeah. He really doesn't withhold information on his free channels, which is awesome.
He doesn't. He also maintains a Patreon channel for paid live, daily video, online lessons, group sessions, and one-on-one consultations.
And that's where he does the premium energy healing services, too.
Right. And he does charge relatively high fees for those premium treatments.
Which makes sense, given his success rate and the sheer rigor of his practice. I mean, he talks about practicing up to 18 hours daily in some stages of his life.
18 hours a day. That is just incredible dedication.
It really is. But his whole mission is to encourage this scientific approach to life, simplifying these ancient, complex protocols.
So that you don't have to go retreat to a cave in the Himalayas to get results. He wants to revive an ancient science that can genuinely benefit your health, your peace, your relationships, and even your finances.
He really has dedicated his life to saving and influencing lives.
Okay, so with that massive foundation laid, let's actually get into the mechanics of that science. Because today, we are tearing down everything you think you know about toxins and what it actually means for a human body to be considered, quote-unquote, sensitive.
Yeah, this completely upends the Western biological model.
It really does. So let's start with the baseline rule of the spiritual community. Osman acknowledges that if you walk into 99.9% of yoga and meditation centers around the world, you are going to hit a brick wall.
A wall of pure dogmatism regarding intoxicants.
Yes, they absolutely forbid them. And it doesn't just stop at alcohol or a recreational drug.
No, not at all. Many of these traditions go so far as to forbid mild stimulants.
Like no green tea,
No black coffee.
no cacao, nothing.
Right. And to understand the reasoning behind that 99.9% rule, we really have to look at the energy model that Osman uses.
Okay, break that down for us, because the conventional understanding of meditation in the West is usually just, calming down or reducing your stress.
Exactly. But the yogic model is actually architectural. Osman asks us to imagine that your life force energy begins at a baseline coordinate.
Like a starting point.
Right? He calls this point Z. So from the base of your spine, which is the Muladhara chakra, you have 7 energy centers going upward.
And those represent, ascending levels of consciousness.
Yes. Ascending levels of clarity, spiritual elevation, pure consciousness.
But there's a flip side to this that most modern, sanitized wellness apps completely live out.
They absolutely leave it out.
Yeah.
Because you also have 7 levels going down from that baseline.
Going below point Z.
Exactly. And this isn't just a metaphor for having a bad mood. The entire bioenergetic purpose of yoga is to elevate your consciousness up those specific quantifiable levels.
You are actively trying to move your frequency upward.
Right. So when you introduce a substance like alcohol into that biological architecture, you're introducing a chemical and energetic dampener.
A literal weight.
Yes. Osman explains that consuming alcohol actively drops your consciousness down 1 or 2 levels from your point Z baseline.
Just automatically.
Automatically.
Yeah.
And it depends entirely on the volume you consume. The alcohol literally acts as a physical weight on the subtle energy body.
Okay, so let's look at the behavioral evidence of this drop, because I think the mechanics here are fascinating, especially when you compare it to how people actually feel when they drink.
Oh, the contrast is huge.
Right, because when people drink, the immediate subjective experience is usually really positive. The dopamine hits, the social anxiety melts away.
You feel incredible.
Yeah, you feel like you are on top of the world. You feel, ironically, elevated.
But that subjective feeling is just a neurochemical illusion.
It's masking the reality.
Exactly. It's masking an objective energetic descent. While your brain is just bathed in artificially induced pleasure chemicals, your actual baseline of consciousness is dropping into those lower 7 levels.
And we see the proof of this in how people behave, don't we?
We absolutely do. Dropping to a lower level of consciousness manifests physically. It looks like doing incredibly stupid things.
Acting aggressive.
Yeah, acting out a character and then waking up with profound regret.
It's the classic liquid courage paradox. I mean, you feel like a philosopher king in the moment.
But you're actually operating at a massive neurological deficit.
Right. You're functioning from a frequency of sheer instinct or lower emotional reactivity rather than elevated clarity.
And Osman doesn't flinch away from the societal reality of this downward pull either.
No, he's very realistic about it.
Yeah, because while a large portion of the population can, manage this drop safely and return to their baseline without much issue, he highlights that roughly 20% of people become heavily addicted to this artificial state.
They get trapped in those lower energy centers.
Yes, trapped. And the tangible, real-world result of living in those lower levels is devastating. It's the complete deterioration of their financial lives, losing spouses, destroying their careers.
The stakes of dropping below point Z are just catastrophic for a massive segment of the population.
Which completely explains the dogmatism of those meditation teachers we mentioned earlier.
Right. If you're a guide and you are taking on the ethical responsibility of helping a student elevate their consciousness.
And, there's this easily accessible chemical that acts as a literal anchor, pulling them into potential ruin.
The most logical protective stance is just a blanket ban. You don't tell them to moderate, you tell them to abstain.
It comes from a desire for absolute efficiency and safety. If your singular goal is upward spiritual momentum, any anchor is a liability.
Even the minor nervous system spike from a cup of Earl Grey tea.
Even that. It's viewed as a chaotic fluctuation that pulls you away from the stillness you need to ascend.
Okay, I understand the protective instinct there. But let's really interrogate this, because to me, it sounds like trying to climb a down escalator.
That's a great analogy.
Right. You spend your whole morning doing breath work, meditating for an hour, doing your asanas, all to go up 3 steps.
And then you have 3 drinks at night.
And you just ride the escalator right back down to the basement. So If the mechanics are this rigidly structural, if alcohol is a literal opposing force to the goal of the practice, at what point does asceticism become totally incompatible with modern life?
That is the big question.
I mean, are we expected to just exist in a sterile bubble forever?
Well, that is the pivotal question of modern spirituality. Are you a monk living an insulated life? Or are you trying to maintain a complex career, a family, and social connections while also growing spiritually?
It's a tough balance.
It is, but Osman's approach is deeply pragmatic. He understands that while the escalator analogy is accurate, the human capacity to generate upward momentum can become astoundingly powerful.
Which brings us to the massive, unexpected turn in Osman's own story.
Oh, this part is wild.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because if alcohol definitively lowers your consciousness, you would assume that a master-level practitioner, someone who reached samadhi at 19, would avoid it like poison.
You'd think he'd never touch a drop.
Exactly. But Osman's personal history completely shatters the assumption that spiritual purity requires lifelong asceticism.
The personal anecdote he provides is genuinely shocking for someone in his position.
Tell them what he used to do.
So he reveals that before he quit entirely, about 19 years ago, he consumed alcohol almost daily for a period of 19 to 21 years.
Almost daily.
Daily. And he explicitly describes himself as having been a, quote, heavy party animal.
Okay, we need to put actual numbers to this, because party animal can mean a lot of things. Sometimes people say that and they mean they had 3 beers on a Saturday.
Not Osman. He is talking about volumes of alcohol that challenge basic medical understanding.
Yeah. He mentions that he could personally pace himself through 1 or 2 entire bottles of whiskey in a sitting.
Entire bottles. And he emphasizes that despite this staggering volume, he only passed out or lost control perhaps 1% of the time.
Which is crazy on its own. But the weekend recovery routine he details, I mean, this is what truly pushes this into the realm of the unbelievable.
Of the Saturday routine?
Yeah. So after a heavy Friday night of drinking, he would wake up on Saturday morning, and in order to, feel good again, he would drink 24 pints within a 2-hour period.
Wait, 24 pints?
24 pints
In 2 hours?
in 120 minutes.
That is insane.
Let's stop right there and look at the thermodynamics of that. A pint is roughly half a liter, right?
Give take, yeah.
So that is 12 liters of fluid entering the human stomach in 2 hours. Setting aside the alcohol content entirely, the sheer volume of liquid should theoretically induce water intoxication.
It would overwhelm the kidney's ability to excrete water.
Exactly, causing severe hyponatremia. Your blood plasma would dilute, sodium levels would crash, and your brain would swell. I mean, medically, the human stomach can comfortably hold about 1 to 1.5 liters.
So pushing 12 liters through that system is an astonishing physiological feat.
It shouldn't be possible, and the routine didn't even stop with the 24 pints.
Oh, right. It kept going.
Yeah. After forcing that volume through his system, he would start a barbecue, invite a friend over, and the 2 of them would proceed to polish off 2 more bottles of whiskey.
Sometimes reaching for a 3rd bottle by 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, I have to challenge this. I have to push back on the framing here.
Go for it.
We are talking about a level of central nervous system depression that would put a normal human being in a coma, if not the morgue. The liver enzymes required to process that much ethanol just don't exist in a standard human baseline.
Right. It's lethal for most people.
So is Osman telling this story simply to boast about his tolerance? Or is he using this extreme superhuman example to prove a specific point to the listener?
It's definitely the latter.
I mean, is the takeaway supposed to be, hey, if I can survive 12 liters of beer and 3 bottles of whiskey and still achieve enlightenment, you don't need to worry about your Friday night margarita?
No. He is absolutely not advocating for binge drinking. And he is not saying that alcohol is harmless.
Okay, good.
He is using an extreme personal baseline to illustrate a profound distinction. It's the distinction between the physical body's chemical tolerance and the independent practice of consciousness.
Right.
The massive contradiction that forms the core of his argument is that throughout those 2 decades of extreme consumption, he still made major, undeniable progress in yoga.
He was actively experiencing samadhi.
Yes.
Yep.
That state of intense, unified meditative absorption. And he was doing it while his physical vessel was saturated with a chemical dampener.
But how is that bioenergetically possible? If we return to the point Z model we talked about earlier, he should be permanently stuck in the basement.
You'd think so.
He has strapped a 1,000-pound lead weight to his energy body. How on earth does he elevate his consciousness to the highest possible levels under those conditions?
It speaks to the sheer, overwhelming voltage of the practice he was maintaining. We have to remember his background here. He was practicing up to 18 hours daily in some stages of his life.
18 hours, wow.
Yeah, he was utilizing quantum energy manipulation. He essentially built a spiritual engine so powerful, a current so incredibly strong, that it could forcibly drag that 1,000-pound lead weight right up the escalator.
So the alcohol was pulling him down?
It was, but his upward thrust was simply far greater than the downward drag.
Ah, okay. So it's a matter of energetic velocity.
Exactly.
But for the average listener, someone who is meditating for 20 minutes a day, they do not have an 18-hour-a-day spiritual engine.
Yeah, definitely not.
If they strap that same lead weight to themselves, the escalator is going to carry them straight down.
Precisely, and Osman knows that. His point isn't that alcohol is neutral. His point is that spiritual progression is not a fragile glass ornament.
That's a great way to put it.
We have this deep-seated fear that if we make a single chemical misstep, we ruin everything. We think one bad weekend erases a whole year of meditation.
Right, you ruined your streak.
Exactly. Osman is proving that a downward pull doesn't permanently delete your upward progress. If the infrastructure is solid, the system can withstand the shock.
Which brings us to a much more moderate, practical application of this idea, because Osman introduces an alternative expert perspective from one of his most advanced teachers.
Yes, S.A. Subramanya Swamswamy.
Right, the founder of the Sai Church in Hawaii. And this teacher advocates for an approach that sounds almost European in its sensibility.
It is a radical departure from the ascetic yogi stereotype, because this highly advanced teacher actually recommends having 1 to 2 glasses of wine or a pint or 2 of beer every single day.
Every day. But there's a crucial caveat.
Yes, the mechanics of how it must be consumed. He stresses that it must be consumed with or after meals. It must never be ingested on an empty stomach.
The physiological difference there is massive. I mean, when you drink on an empty stomach, the ethanol passes almost immediately through the stomach lining.
Right into the small intestine.
Exactly, where it is rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream. It spikes your blood alcohol concentration, creating this massive shock to the central nervous system.
And a violent energetic drop.
But when you introduce it with food, especially fats and proteins, the pyloric sphincter closes to digest the meal.
So the alcohol is trapped in the stomach.
Yes, where enzymes begin breaking it down before it ever even reaches the bloodstream.
Exactly. The absorption is slowed to a trickle. It becomes integrated into the nourishment and metabolic process of the body, rather than acting as a violent chemical shock.
So it is framed as something potentially healthy, like a mild relaxant that aids in the parasympathetic rest and digest phase, as long as it is integrated properly.
It fundamentally changes your relationship to the substance.
Right. You are no longer using it as a sledgehammer to escape reality or instantly numb your baseline. You are using it as a mild, managed fluctuation.
And Osman's advice to modern students reflects this exact nuance. He doesn't mandate that his students become teetotalers.
He supports drinking socially and responsibly.
He argues that if you attend a party once a week, you have a few drinks, and you maintain your composure without getting sick or losing control.
That occasional indulgence is not going to substantially derail your progress.
Because intention, pacing, and context matter infinitely more than just dogmatic abstinence. If your daily practice is consistent, a minor fluctuation on a Saturday night is easily absorbed by the system.
The energy body is resilient enough to recalibrate.
It is.
Okay,
Right.
so that covers liquid intoxicants. Alcohol is a depressant. It drops your energy levels, but doesn't necessarily break your spiritual machinery if you know how to drive the car. But that naturally leads us to a completely different category of substances. What happens when the substance isn't just dampening your mood, but actively introducing physical toxins into the architecture of your body?
This is where things get really intense.
Yeah. What happens when you introduce smoke into a vessel that is actively trying to heal and elevate itself?
This brings us to what might be the most fascinating paradox in all of Osman's teachings. When we look at cigarettes, or really any inhaled toxin, the natural assumption is that smoking would be the ultimate roadblock to yoga.
It has to be. I mean, the entire foundation of advanced yoga is pranayama.
The mastery of the life force through breath control.
Exactly. You are dealing with the subtle energy channels, the nadis, which are inextricably linked to the respiratory system.
Right.
So you would think that coating the alveoli of your lungs in tar and carbon monoxide would completely sever your ability to move energy.
It seems like it should, But Osman's answer is incredibly nuanced here, and it separates the physical from the ethereal.
Okay, how so?
He states that, from a pure consciousness perspective, smoking does not negatively affect your spiritual progress.
Wait, really?
Really, it does not stop the energetic elevation in the way that alcohol acts as a psychological dampener. The consciousness can actually still ascend even while the lungs are inhaling smoke.
I know there's a massive biological penalty coming here. We can't just separate the ethereal from the physical without consequences.
Oh, the penalty is absolute. While the smoke doesn't halt the spiritual progress, the spiritual progress creates a fatal vulnerability to the smoke.
A fatal vulnerability.
Yes. To understand this, we have to look at Osman's theory of rejuvenation. Advanced yoga and meditation don't just calm the mind. They initiate a profound cellular and energetic renewal of the physical body.
So it alters apoptosis, affects the nervous system, changes the way your cells regenerate.
Exactly. And he uses an analogy that really stuck with me. He says that as you progress deeply into these practices, your internal systems, specifically your lungs, become incredibly sensitive.
But they revert back.
Yes. They rejuvenate to the point where they are, in his words, like a 3-year-old child's.
Wow. It's a perfect description of the biological state, because if you take a hardened adult who has lived a rough life, they've spent decades building up resistance.
They have scar tissue.
Exactly. Their immune system is constantly engaged. Their cells are accustomed to filtering out environmental garbage. So when that adult smokes a cigarette, it is harmful, obviously, but their body has an armored defense system to process and isolate those toxins.
But when a master yogi does the work to clear all that out,
They are essentially stripping away the armor.
exactly, exposing this newly sensitized, newly rejuvenated yogic body to environmental toxins is the biological equivalent of making a toddler inhale passive smoke.
Oh, that's a brutal image.
But it's accurate. The toddler gets sick instantly because they have no acquired defenses. The damage to the yogi is profound and immediate because the cellular structure has been softened and purified.
And Osman points to a historical cautionary tale to illustrate how dangerous this paradox can be, right?
He does. He brings up the lineage of Swami Vivekananda.
And for listeners who might not know, Vivekananda is a monumental figure in global history. I mean, he is largely credited with bringing the science of yoga and Vedanta to the Western world in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
He addressed the Parliament of Religions in Chicago.
He spoke to the United Nations in 1902. He was a deeply influential, highly visible master.
But Osman actually focuses on Vivekananda's guru, his teacher, Ramakrishna.
Right.
Ramakrishna was considered one of the most spiritually elevated beings of his era. His level of energetic mastery was so absolute that historical accounts claim he could trigger profound, out-of-body spiritual awakenings in other people simply touching them.
That is a level of bioenergetic voltage that is almost incomprehensible. He was just a pure conduit.
He was. Yet, despite having absolute mastery over his subtle energy and his consciousness, Ramakrishna had a physical habit,
He loved smoking a pipe.
and ultimately that pipe killed him. He suffered and died from throat cancer.
It is the ultimate tragic irony of the practice. The healthier, purer, and more spiritually advanced you become, the more vulnerable your physical vessel becomes to the crude toxins of the material world.
Your spiritual strength directly manufactures a physical fragility.
Okay, I have to stop and pose a philosophical dilemma here.
Let's hear it.
Because as a modern person listening to this, I hear that story and I think, why on earth would I want to do that?
That's a fair question.
Right. If dedicating myself to advanced yoga and meditation makes my cellular structure so pure and sensitive that a bit of secondhand smoke or a regular habit could absolutely wreck me, isn't that a massive evolutionary disadvantage?
Well, it entirely depends on what you define as an advantage.
Let me put it this way. It feels like upgrading a rugged, reliable Jeep into a multi-million-dollar high-performance Formula One engine.
Okay, I like this.
The F1 car is amazing. It is capable of speeds the Jeep could never dream of. It is a masterpiece of engineering. But if you take that F1 car out of its pristine laboratory environment and you try to drive it down a dirt road, or you put regular unleaded gas from a corner station into it, the engine completely explodes.
Right, it can't handle the impurities.
Exactly. The Jeep could run on dirty gas for a decade. So is it actually beneficial to become an F1 engine in a world that is inherently filled with dirt roads and cheap gas?
That tension is the exact center of this entire philosophy. And if we connect this to the broader cultural conversation about health, it completely inverts the Western biohacking mindset.
Oh, totally, because biohackers are obsessed with optimization.
They are, but look at the goal of their optimization. In the West, we view health as a process of hardening. We want to become bulletproof.
Yeah, we plunge ourselves into freezing water to shock our vascular system.
We lift heavy weights to create micro tears in our muscles so they grow back thicker. We take callousing supplements.
We want to build an impenetrable armor against disease and aging so that we can walk through a toxic world and just bounce the toxins off our chests. We want to be harder to kill.
We want to be the armored tank.
Exactly.
But Osman is arguing that true yogic science, the genuine ancient methodology, does the exact opposite. It is a systematic process of removing the armor.
It is a profound softening.
Yes. You are returning to a state of childlike openness, permeability, and flow.
Yeah.
The goal is not to resist the universe. The goal is to become so exquisitely sensitive that you can perceive and interact with the subtlest energetic frequencies in existence.
You want to feel the quantum entanglement.
Exactly.
But the terrible cost of that sensitivity is that you feel the poison just as deeply as you feel the divine.
You cannot have it both ways. You cannot maintain the hypersensitivity required to feel the subtle energetic hum of a plant, while simultaneously maintaining the hardened cellular armor required to chain smoke without consequence.
You have to choose your vehicle.
If you choose to remove the armor, you require a relatively pristine environment to survive.
That is a staggering paradigm shift. The idea that supreme health equals supreme vulnerability. And here is where Osman's framework goes from profound to downright bizarre.
Yeah, this next part is wild.
Because this hypersensitivity doesn't just stop at obvious toxins like tobacco smoke or carcinogens. According to his experience, once that armor is fully stripped away, this sensitivity bleeds into the most mundane, everyday things you consume.
Things that are currently sitting in your kitchen
Yeah.
and are globally considered to be health foods.
Yes. When the body reaches that state of childlike rejuvenation, the most unexpected items on Osman's list reveal themselves as potent intoxicants.
We are talking about onions and garlic.
It sounds like a punchline.
It really does. And to his credit, Osman fully acknowledges how ridiculous it sounds. He admits to his own profound confusion when he was younger and studying these traditions.
He would look at ancient Ayurvedic texts or Jainist dietary laws, which strictly forbid onions and garlic, and he would think, why?
Right, these are root vegetables. They grow in the earth, they are entirely natural, they don't contain alcohol. Why on earth would spiritual masters ban a plant?
And for a normal, armored human being, they are incredibly healthy. They are packed with antioxidants.
But as Osman's practice deepened over the decades, and his body achieved that state of extreme, unarmored cellular sensitivity we just discussed, the biological reality of these plants began to hit him with violent force.
And we need to be clear about the scale of the reaction here. We are not talking about getting a little heartburn or having bad breath or feeling slightly sluggish.
Not at all.
Let's break down exactly what happens to the central nervous system of an advanced yogi when they ingest these alliums, starting with garlic.
Okay, so Osman notes that his favorite dish used to be spinach cooked with heavy amounts of garlic.
Sounds delicious.
But as his energy channels cleared, eating that exact same dish started acting on his system like a literal overdose of pharmaceutical sleeping tablets. He describes a complete systemic crash. Within 2 hours of eating a garlic-heavy meal, his parasympathetic nervous system is so overwhelmingly stimulated that he becomes completely incapacitated.
Unable to work, unable to maintain his focus.
And he's physically forced to sleep for 2 to 3 hours just to let the chemical effect wear off.
And he emphasizes that he cannot fight it. He says that even drinking strong, highly caffeinated coffee cannot counteract the drowsiness. The garlic simply overpowers his nervous system, bypassing the caffeine entirely and shutting his brain down.
Let's look at the chemistry to understand how this is even possible. We know that garlic is incredibly rich in a compound called allicin.
Right.
For an armored person, allicin is great. It lowers blood pressure slightly. It acts as an antimicrobial agent. It's a mild vasodilator.
It relaxes the blood vessels.
Exactly. But think about the noise-canceling microphone analogy. Imagine you have a microphone calibrated for a heavy metal concert. The baseline volume is so loud that if you whisper into the mic, it doesn't even register. That is the normal human body reacting to allicin. We barely notice the drop in blood pressure.
Because there's so much static.
Right. But if you take that same microphone and you recalibrate it to pick up the sound of a pin dropping in a completely silent room, which is what decades of meditation does to the nervous system, and then you blast a foghorn into it.
The entire system shorts out to protect itself.
Allison hits those highly sensitized vasodilation pathways, the blood pressure drops precipitously, the parasympathetic nervous system screams rest and digest at maximum volume, and the brain simply pulls the plug and forces the body into sleep.
It's not a mystical reaction, it is a hyper-exaggerated physiological response due to the absence of bodily static.
Exactly.
Which is fascinating. But then we look at onions, which produce an entirely different but arguably much more disruptive effect.
This is the reaction that truly challenges our understanding of food.
It blew my mind. Osman states that eating just one slice of raw onion, the kind of single, thin slice you would find tossed casually into a side salad, makes him feel completely, unequivocally drunk.
Drunk from an onion.
He equates the physiological and neurological feeling of eating one slice of raw onion to the feeling of drinking 3 or 4 double whiskeys.
And this is not a fleeting placebo effect sensation.
Yeah.
He explicitly states that this profound, intoxicating feeling from a single slice of onion lasts for an astonishing 6 to 8 hours.
Which leads to a genuinely hilarious observation from him. He jokes about his past life as a party animal, thinking about the thousands of dollars he must have wasted buying expensive bottles of whiskey.
Only to realize decades later that he could get the exact same powerful buzz for pennies simply by advancing his yoga practice and eating a slice of red onion.
It's a brilliant moment of levity, but the underlying implications for the practice of meditation are incredibly severe.
Because the goal is clarity. If your favorite spinach and garlic dish physically drugs you into a coma, and a slice of onion in your salad makes you feel like you just downed a pint of whiskey for the next 8 hours,
it becomes physically impossible to maintain the sharp, elevated, crystal-clear focus required for deep meditation.
you cannot ascend the energetic ladder while your brain is swimming in the neurochemical cascade triggered by an allium.
You are actively trying to ascend to the highest levels of consciousness, and your side salad is forcibly drugging you into a stupor.
And Osman warns about the insidious, long-term compounding effect of this diet. It's not just about ruining one meditation session on a Tuesday night.
No, it's cumulative.
If you are consuming these substances regularly, if you are eating garlic and onions in your pasta, in your soups, your salads every single day, they become a permanent fixture in your bloodstream.
They are essentially setting up a permanent anchor.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are constantly, quietly countering your spiritual progress from the inside out. They keep your baseline energy tethered to a lower frequency, and you never even realize it because you think you are just eating vegetables.
Okay, I have to push back here, and I want to look at this critically, because a single slice of onion equating to 4 double whiskeys is a massive claim.
It is massive.
Chemically, there is no ethanol in an onion. There is nothing that binds to the GABA receptors in the brain the way alcohol does. Are we absolutely sure this isn't a psychosomatic response? Or perhaps a highly specific developed food allergy that he's interpreting as spiritual intoxication?
I mean, it's a valid question.
Because at a certain point, I have to ask, is the goal of yoga really to become so radically impossibly sensitive that a Caesar salad becomes a controlled substance? If the world is this toxic, does achieving this level of purity make it literally impossible to live and function in modern society? Do you just have to become a hermit who only eats boiled rice?
This is where we have to establish the spectrum of practice. And it is vital to keep Osman's specific context in mind. He is not saying that an onion contains alcohol.
Okay.
He is saying that the energetic footprint of the onion interacts with the subtle energy body in a way that mimics the heavy downward pull of intoxication. And importantly, he explicitly clarifies that he only started experiencing these extreme, debilitating reactions when he reached highly advanced levels of meditation.
Right. For the first few decades of his life, he ate onions and garlic without noticing a single adverse effect, just like the rest of us.
Exactly. For the average listener whose body is still operating with its normal hardened armor, whose nervous system is dealing with the baseline static of modern stress, processed food, and environmental noise, garlic is just garlic.
It's healthy. It's good for your heart. An onion is just an onion.
So if a listener goes out tonight and eats a slice of pizza with garlic powder, they aren't going to suddenly spiral into a psychedelic 8-hour intoxication.
No, because their microphone is still calibrated for the rock concert.
But Osman's advanced state acts as a magnifying glass for human biology. He is demonstrating a fundamental truth of nature. Every single thing we ingest, every plant, every chemical, every liquid, has a highly specific, energetic, and physiological footprint. It has a frequency.
We are just usually too numb, too armored to feel the frequency.
Precisely. We carry so much internal static that we don't notice the subtle ways these foods alter our baseline. We don't notice that the garlic makes us slightly lethargic or the onion makes our mind slightly cloudy because we are already exhausted and cloudy.
Wow.
Osman's experience proves that the effects are real and measurable. We are just too desensitized to register them until we put in the decades of work to clear the static.
That is a phenomenal grounding way to look at it. The chemical composition of the food isn't changing. The human instrument's ability to perceive the impact of the food is what changes. It's like a deep-sea diver coming to the surface. When you are at the bottom of the ocean under millions of pounds of pressure, you don't feel a 10-pound weight on your chest. But when you are floating weightless at the surface, that same 10-pound weight will drag you under.
That is the perfect analogy. The weight is constant. The environment of the body dictates how it is felt.
Let's bring all of this together, because we have covered a massive, fascinating spectrum of how substances interact with human consciousness. We started by looking at the classic intoxicant, alcohol.
Right. And Osman's bioenergetic model shows us clearly that it acts as a dampener, pulling your consciousness down the energetic ladder and opposing the upward trajectory of your practice.
But crucially, his own extreme history, the 24 pints, the bottles of whiskey, proves that it doesn't necessarily permanently break your system or halt your progress, provided your spiritual engine is powerful enough to overcome the drag.
And if you follow the advice of masters like S.A. Subramanya Swami, consuming it moderately with food transforms it from a violent shock into a manageable fluctuation.
Then we explored the paradox of smoking. It introduced us to the concept that spiritual progress doesn't automatically protect the physical body. In fact, it does the opposite.
It initiates cellular rejuvenation. It strips away the hardened armor we build up against the world, leaving the body profoundly sensitive. The ethereal consciousness can still ascend while smoking, but the physical vessel simply cannot survive the crude toxicity once it has been softened.
And finally, we saw how that exact same hypersensitivity eventually reveals everyday, seemingly harmless foods like onions and garlic for what they truly are on an energetic level.
Potent, mind-altering substances that have the power to drug an advanced yogi for hours, short-circuiting the parasympathetic nervous system and grounding their spiritual flight.
The entire journey Osman outlines is a masterclass in shedding numbness. It is a terrifying, beautiful process of waking up to the reality of what we put inside ourselves.
Exactly. And that is why this deeply matters for you, the listener, even if you aren't an advanced yogi, even if you have a zero interest in achieving samadhi or spending decades clearing your energy channels.
Because you don't have to quit everything immediately to benefit from this knowledge. You don't have to throw out the garlic in your pantry today. What Osman is really offering us is an invitation to cultivate acute, honest awareness.
It is an invitation to finally look through the magnifying glass.
Yes. Notice how your body actually feels. Strip away the cultural narrative of what a substance is supposed to do and observe what it actually does to your unique baseline.
How do you truly feel the morning after a drink? Are you a little more reactive, a little less patient?
How does your brain actually feel after a heavy, garlic-laden meal? Do you feel nourished, or do you feel a subtle, dragging lethargy? How does your breath feel after smoking?
You have to ask yourself if you are carrying so much daily armor that you have become completely numb to the real effects of what you consume.
Are you caught in a loop of masking exhaustion with caffeine and then masking the caffeine anxiety with alcohol, never once feeling your actual unmedicated baseline?
Once you start paying attention to those subtle micro shifts in your frequency, you begin to realize how much architectural control you actually have over your own consciousness.
You aren't just a victim of your moods, you are the biochemist of your own experience. Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. Something to really chew on as you go about your life, looking at the substances around you.
Okay, lay on us.
We've spent this entire deep dive talking about physical, tangible things, whiskey, tobacco smoke, onions, garlic, and how they enter the biology to intoxicate the body and lower our baseline. But consider this. What about digital intoxicants?
Oh, wow. That is a terrifying and brilliant connection to make.
Think about the mechanics we just outlined. If a single naturally occurring slice of onion can scramble an advanced, highly trained yogi's subtle energy and focus for 8 straight hours, what is a 2-hour doom scroll on social media doing to your unarmored mind?
That's a scary thought.
If alcohol pulls you down 2 levels on the Muladhara consciousness scale by spiking your dopamine and lowering your inhibition, Where does a hyper-optimized algorithm designed by thousands of engineers specifically to feed you outrage, comparison, and anxiety pull you?
It pulls you straight to the basement.
We spend so much time and money obsessing over what we put in our mouths. We buy organic, we filter our water, we debate the merits of a glass of wine, but we might be completely, willingly ignoring the most potent, frequency-lowering toxins we are feeding directly into our minds every single hour of the day. Until next time, stay curious.